On her birthday this year, Rachel expected nothing more than a quiet dinner with her family. She still remembers the old days when Ethan, her husband, always gave her unexpected gifts and gave her sweet wishes. But now, everything has changed. Rachel stood in the kitchen, staring at the cake she had made herself. She doesn't ask for a lavish party, just care and a hug from Ethan, the husband she thought would always be a solid fulcrum in her life. But today, like every other day recently, Ethan just sat in the living room, eyes glued to the phone screen without even turning to look at her once. "Happy birthday, Rachel," she told herself, trying to fake a smile in the mirror. But that smile didn't really appear. It was just forced, like she was trying to please herself. She sighed, put the cake on the table, and decided to call Ethan down to have dinner together. When she entered the living room and saw him still immersed in his work, Rachel felt like she was just a ghost in this house. "Ethan, dinner is ready," she called out. He didn't respond, just nodded without looking up at her. A cold feeling enveloped him, as if he hadn't heard her words. "Can you at least look at me once?" Rachel thought, but couldn't get the words out. She was so used to his indifference. She wondered if she was the only one who felt this distance between them growing. When dinner was served, Rachel still tried to keep the atmosphere light. She placed the cake on the table, and as if a habit had become ingrained in their lives, she asked him gently, "Ethan, I hope today will be special, at least for me." He glanced at the cake and then turned back to his phone screen, unmoved. Um, he replied with only one word, "This doesn't look bad." That sentence was like a knife stabbing into Rachel's heart. The feeling of disappointment choked her, but she did not allow herself to shed tears. "Thank you," she said, trying to stay calm. "It took me a long time to make it." But Ethan just shrugged and went back to his work. When dinner was served, there was silence except for the sound of the computer and the click of Ethan's phone. Rachel didn't know what to do but try to swallow her emotions, which she had been doing all along. She picked up the spoon and ate. Each bite of food seemed to have no flavor, just a way to fill the void in her heart. She didn't understand why things turned out like that. She didn't think her marriage would reach this state, where all her efforts would only be met with indifference. What were we like? She wondered, but the answer was still not there. Their daughter Lily ran into the living room looking curiously at the meal. "Mom, today is your birthday, right?" she asked, her voice soft and innocent. "That's right, honey." Rachel smiled, trying to hide her heartbreak. "Thank you for remembering." Lily walked closer to her mother and looked at the cake on the table. "Mom, can you cut the cake for me?" The question was simple but made Rachel's heart clench. She picked up the knife and began cutting the cake, each slice a reminder of Ethan's coldness. When dinner ended, Ethan stood up and quickly left the table without saying goodbye. He never looked back, nor a happy birthday, nor a hug. Rachel watched him go and her heart ached. She stood up, picked up the dishes, and walked into the kitchen. What did I do wrong? She wondered. The next morning, Rachel woke up in an empty space without any congratulations from Ethan. She sat on the bed. Her eyes looked at the alarm clock on the table, then looked at where Ethan usually slept. But he had gone out a long time ago, leaving her alone in the cold room. Rachel sighed, filled with fatigue. She stood up, went to the bathroom, and started getting ready for the day. She had decided that no matter what, she would try to make Isabel's party special, even if only in her eyes. Step by step, Rachel prepared the only gift she could give, a painting. She didn't need a fancy birthday present or compliments from Ethan, just a genuine look from Isabel, who she knew would understand her. Anyway, Isabel is the only person who still respects Rachel and encourages her to pursue art. When Rachel finished the painting, she felt a little proud of herself. It is not a perfect masterpiece, but it is the product of all the emotions, suppressed desires, tears, and fatigue over the past time. When she held the painting, looking at each brushstroke, she felt a special connection with it. It was not just a gift for Isabel, but a gift for herself, a statement of worth she could not afford to lose. After finishing preparing, Rachel quickly put on a simple but elegant dress. She looked at the picture one more time before leaving the house. Her daughter Sophie ran to hug her mother, looked at the painting, and asked, "Mom, who did you draw this for?" "I drew it for Miss Isabel, honey," Rachel replied, gently patting her child. She wants to show her children that we don't always have to compromise with what others want. This painting is a part of her, a part of the freedom she is looking for. She hopes that one day Sophie will understand that artistic freedom is one of the most precious gifts a person can possess. Although Rachel felt nervous, she decided she would not allow fear to hold her back. She goes to Isabel's party, bringing a special gift. When she entered, the festive atmosphere and sparkling lights of the party made Rachel feel very small. The people around her smiled and chatted happily, but she couldn't blend into the crowd. Her eyes searched for Isabel, and as soon as she saw this woman standing in the corner of the room, Rachel felt a wave of emotion. Isabel was the only person in this crowd who understood her. She walked towards Isabel and gently handed her the painting. "Happy birthday, Isabel. This is the gift I want to give you," Rachel said, her voice gentle but a little nervous. Isabel looked at the painting, her eyes filled with surprise. "Oh, Rachel, that's amazing. You drew it, didn't you? It's so beautiful," Isabel praised. Rachel felt relieved. Despite Isabel's compliments, she couldn't help but feel Ethan's presence somewhere in this room. Ethan was standing alone, watching her with cold eyes. He didn't say anything, just looked at her quietly with aloofness. Rachel didn't know what she should do, but she felt like she couldn't continue living in Ethan's shadow anymore. She knew that this painting was not just a simple birthday gift, but a milestone for a change in her life. Isabel took the painting and placed it on a table in the middle of the room. "I like it a lot. I think you have real talent, Rachel. Have you ever thought about displaying your works?" Isabel asked, her voice filled with hope. Rachel was confused, not knowing how to answer. "I never thought about that," she replied, her voice a little worried. Isabel smiled and patted her shoulder. "I think you should try it. Your art is very special, Rachel. Don't let it just be a hobby. Give it a chance to grow." Isabel's words were like a sedative, but also an urge. Rachel felt a profound change within her. She realized that there was no reason for her to continue living in the shadow of Ethan's indifference. She had to step out of there and find her passion and self-worth. She is determined to never return to her old life again. The party continued, but in Rachel's heart, a decision had been made. She didn't need Ethan to feel complete, and she didn't have to live up to his expectations anymore. As the lights dimmed and people began to disperse, Rachel looked at the painting again. This wasn't just a birthday gift for Isabel. It was a gift to herself, a reminder of the freedom she deserved. She smiled, feeling relieved. Ethan is no longer the only person who can shape her life. She will decide her own path, and that path will be painted with the colors she chooses. Since the day of Isabel's party, Rachel couldn't stop thinking about the words Isabel had said. Those simple but meaningful words evoked a change in her heart that she could not deny. Isabel believes in her talent, which means a lot to Rachel. Not only did she receive encouragement from someone other than Ethan, but she also realized that she could walk this path on her own without having to rely on anyone else. The emotion and determination in Rachel's heart grew more and more. She spent time after the party thinking about what she wanted, about the passion she had to sacrifice all the time. However, she also knows that this path is not easy. Ethan still hasn't changed. He didn't realize that Rachel was finding herself. Their conversations still lack connection, and arguments are still an indispensable part of their everyday. One morning, Rachel was making breakfast for Sophie when Ethan walked in, his eyes still glued to his phone. "Rachel, you have to think about more practical things. We can't live on art alone." He spoke, his voice still cold as always. Rachel felt the tension in her stomach, but she didn't let it hold her back. She couldn't let Ethan continue to make her feel small and useless. "I don't just live for art, Ethan. I live for myself." "As for you, you only think about work and money," Rachel replied, trying to stay calm even though those words hurt her. "I can do a normal job without having to worry too much about art." Ethan sighed, his expression impatient. "So what will you do?" "What about your family?" Ethan's question made Rachel feel like she was being forced into a corner. She was silent for a moment, but then she decided that this time she wouldn't back down. "I won't give up art. I will do an exhibition, and I will prove to you that I can succeed in what I am passionate about." Although Rachel's words were strong, she knew she would face fierce opposition from Ethan. He never understood the passion and love she had for art. She saw disappointment in his eyes, but this time she didn't feel scared anymore. She will do what she needs to do to find herself again. After that conversation, Rachel began preparing for her first exhibition. She seeks out other artists to collaborate with, striving to create works that not only express her creativity, but also her own identity. During that time, Ethan constantly criticized her. He did not understand why Rachel spent so much time and effort on art and not focusing on family. The conversations between the two became more tense than ever. One evening, while Rachel was taking care of her daughter, Ethan walked in and saw her working on a large painting. He frowned, his eyes filled with dissatisfaction. "Are you doing this again?" "Another painting. Don't you see the whole family is having a hard time and you keep messing around with these useless things?" Ethan's words made Rachel's heart sink. She had hoped he would understand, at least a little, that art for her was not just a hobby, but the only way for her to maintain herself in a marriage that was slowly falling apart. She looked at him, then at the picture, and then at Sophie, who was still innocent in her games, unaware that her mother was facing great challenges. "Ethan, can you say those words to me again? Have you thought about how I feel?" Rachel said, her voice colder than ever. "I've had enough. I don't have to keep living up to your expectations anymore. I'm going to follow my dreams." At this time, Ethan was silent. He didn't say anything, just stood there, his eyes filled with disappointment. Rachel no longer wanted to explain. She said everything she needed to say. From now on, she will live her life, even if she has to stand alone. In the following days, Rachel continued her preparations for the exhibition. She invited Isabel to see her works and received enthusiastic support from this friend. Isabel was the only person in this crowd who understood her, and Isabel's encouragement made Rachel feel like she was not alone. Meanwhile, Ethan still shows no signs of changing. He didn't understand why Rachel was so determined, but she didn't need him to understand anymore. She doesn't need to explain further. The day before the exhibition, Rachel received notice that her painting would be displayed in one of the largest galleries in the city. It was an opportunity that she never dared to dream of. She felt her heart pounding, but this time not from anxiety, but from joy and pride. She had reached this point, even though no one was standing beside her. As the exhibition began, Rachel felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement. Attendees started coming and admiring her works. She no longer felt small, no longer afraid of Ethan's disapproval. She did what she always dreamed of. Later that day, as she was looking at the paintings on display, Isabel came up to her and tapped her on the shoulder. "I'm so proud of you, Rachel. You've done something amazing," Isabel said, her eyes filled with respect. Rachel looked at Isabel and smiled. "Thank you. You believed in me. It meant a lot to me." Rachel knows that. No matter how many difficulties she faces, she will never give up her dream. She has found herself and will continue to follow the artistic path, the path she deserves to follow. That day, as Rachel stood in front of the mirror, a feeling of pride and happiness filled her heart. She did something she never dared to dream of. She successfully organized her first art exhibition. Each painting, each work reflects the journey she went through, from painful and tiring days to finding herself. At this point, Rachel no longer felt like she was just Ethan's silent wife. She is an artist, and she deserves respect. But not only is there joy from organizing the exhibition, today is also a very special day for Rachel. She received an invitation to participate in a larger exhibition at a famous art space in the city. This is a rare opportunity and can completely change her artistic path. Isabel called Rachel this morning to tell her the good news. "Rachel, you've been invited to participate in the city's big exhibition. They want you in it. This is a great opportunity for you to step into the light," Isabel said into the phone, her voice full of excitement. Isabel's words were an affirmation that she was not mistaken in her confidence in Rachel's abilities. The feeling of excitement and joy made Rachel feel like she couldn't believe her ears. She felt that all the sacrifices, all the late nights painting had been worth it. She stood there, in the quiet room, holding her phone and looking at the picture she had worked so hard to draw. "I did it," she told herself. But when she saw the paintings that were hung at the exhibition, her mood began to drop again. She realized that she would face opposition from Ethan. He never accepted that Rachel could do something great outside of her family responsibilities. "You won't understand, as you often say, that art cannot support a family." Even so, Rachel was still determined in her heart not to give up. She couldn't live forever in the shadow of Ethan's indifference and criticism. She is no longer the weak woman before. She has regained strength and faith in herself. When the big art exhibition took place, Rachel felt like all her worries and tensions seemed to fade away. She entered the exhibition room where art lovers were admiring her works. She looked at the crowd, feeling their admiration and respect. She knew that this was an important moment in her life. Rachel received many compliments from attendees. They praised her paintings, their creativity, and the emotional depth that each work brings. These words were like a sedative, helping her confirm that she was on the right path. But while everyone around her was enjoying the exhibition, Rachel felt a sense of emptiness inside. She looked for a familiar figure in the crowd, but couldn't find Ethan. Her heart suddenly sank. Although Rachel was determined to move on, part of her still hoped that Ethan would come and witness her success. She hopes he will realize that her endeavors are not just a trivial hobby, but an important part of her life. At that moment, Isabel walked up to Rachel, looking at her with proud eyes. "You did great, Rachel. I'm proud of you," Isabel said, patting her shoulder. "I think you will go very far with this art." Rachel felt her heart warm when she heard these words. Isabel had always been the only person who believed in her, and her encouragement made Rachel feel that she was not alone. But she couldn't forget Ethan. She knew that he would never understand the importance of art to her. He only looks at material things, at money and stability. Rachel knew that she had to decide to walk alone, no matter how difficult it was. After the exhibition ended, Rachel went home with a feeling of stability. She no longer felt scared or worried about what Ethan would say. She did what she wanted to do, and that was her own success. Arriving home, she received a text message from Ethan. "Rachel, can I talk to you?" She looked at the message for a long moment before replying. "I'm busy. I'm not going back to the way I was, Ethan. I can't live up to what you want." In response to that message, Rachel felt a sense of relief. She has already decided. She wouldn't live in Ethan's shadow any longer. She doesn't need him to feel happy. Rachel smiled and walked into her office. She would start painting her next painting, and this time she wouldn't have to wait for anyone's approval. She has created her own path, and that path will lead her to the future she has dreamed of. She felt full of faith and hope. Ethan may leave her, but she will never give up on herself. After the exhibition day, Rachel felt a great change in her heart. She stepped out of her comfort zone and proved to herself that art is not just a passion, but an indispensable part of her life. Even though Ethan wasn't in the exhibition, Rachel didn't feel sad anymore. She began to realize that support from people who understood her, like Isabel, meant more than anything. No matter how much Ethan protested, she decided to live her life. In the following days, Rachel continued her painting work, but this time with a completely different mindset. She not only drew for herself, but also for the dreams and hopes that she had buried for so long. She is no longer afraid of criticism from Ethan or those around her. She has found her path, and that path is no longer constrained by expectations and judgments. One morning, while Rachel was drawing in her room, she received an unexpected call from Isabel. "Rachel, there's a great opportunity for you. A famous gallery in the city wants to exhibit your work. They saw your painting and want you to participate in their exhibition." This offer came like a shower after months of dry days. Rachel couldn't believe her ears. A major gallery wanted to exhibit her work. This is an opportunity that she never dared to dream of. But Isabel is not only a companion, she is also a source of inspiration for Rachel, helping her realize that the value of art is not only assessed by compliments from those around her. "Thank you, Isabel," Rachel said, her voice choked up. "I won't disappoint you." To prepare for this exhibition, Rachel threw herself into her work with all her enthusiasm. She spends hours every day in the drawing room, taking care of each brushstroke so that each painting is not only beautiful but also contains her soul. She knows that this is an opportunity for her to not only assert her talent, but also a way for her to draw a new life, no longer attached to the past, no longer held back by indifference and disrespect from Ethan. Still, throughout this process, she couldn't help but think about Ethan. He is still there, in this house, with wordless silence and coldness. She knew that no matter how hard she tried, he would never understand what she was doing. In the days that followed, their short conversations only revolved around work and family expenses. But Rachel no longer felt hurt. She learned to ignore those words, and instead, she focused on the things that truly mattered to her. In the evenings, when she painted, Rachel felt a joy she hadn't felt in a long time. Art has become her comfort and motivation to keep going. 1 month later, her exhibition officially took place. The gallery where Rachel's work was displayed was packed. People from all over come to admire the paintings full of emotion and vitality. Rachel no longer felt small, no longer afraid that people would look at her with pity. Each painting is an affirmation of ability, perseverance, and belief in oneself. Among the crowd, Rachel noticed a familiar face. Ethan was standing in the corner of the room, looking at her with cold eyes. He didn't move closer, just stood there watching, as if waiting for an explanation. This time, though, Rachel didn't feel insecure. She has changed. She is no longer his weak wife, but an artist, a woman with value and the ability to control her life. A moment later, Isabel approached Rachel, her eyes shining with pride. "Rachel, you really did it. I'm so proud of you." Isabel's words warmed Rachel's heart. She looked at her paintings and felt proud, not because of the compliments from others, but because she was in control of her life. She knows that no matter who is standing next to her, she will continue to draw, continue to pursue her dream. When the exhibition ended, Rachel felt relieved and at peace. She no longer worried about criticism from Ethan. She has found her own path, and that path will never be blocked. She has opened a new chapter in her life, a life she would never live for another person again. Thank you for this life. Thank you for art, Rachel thought, smiling inside. She has found herself and will never give up what she has. She will continue to draw, continue to live, and continue to grow. Ethan may leave her, but she will never give up on herself. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you enjoyed the story and want to hear more emotional, inspiring tales, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for more stories that touch the heart and be part of our growing community. By subscribing, you'll never miss a chapter of these powerful life journeys. Click the bell so you're always notified when the next story is live. Thank you for your support, and we can't wait to share more with you soon.